United States Solheim player records. Lexi Thompson, this week, all these cups that you see noted here are inclusive of this week. 9-7-7 record, 2-1-3 in singles. Allie Ewan 3-8-1. Nelly Cordes 7-4-1. Megan Kang 4-3-3. You could see all of these records, which I'm going to be getting back to in a second. But look at the bottom. Team Cup experience 22. Okay, take us into the European side. Again, you can go through the individual stats. If we have time today, I'm going to do that. As you take a look at this, you could see that the European Solheim player records, look again at the bottom, team experience 37 compared to 22 for Team USA. So again, we say good day, one and all. It's a pleasure to have your company as we're trying to sort through. When you look at the stats, when you look at these teams to try to get a sense and an edge of who might have that edge in the Solheim Cup, it's really difficult. Now, you can go on this level and go, you know what? All you have to do is look at the last three. Europe has won 2, and the last one they drew in. It was a tie. That was a year ago. So from that standpoint, you'd look at it and go, well, the European Solheim Cup team clearly has the knowledge of the edge. There you can see it displayed in 19, 14.5, 13.5 because of that miraculous putt by Suzanne Pedersen, the captain again this year for their team. But she makes that putt and she summarily putter drops and says, I'm done. I'm retired. It was absolutely brilliant way to go out. 2021, you could see a 15-13 edge at Inverness. Again, balanced to Europe, and then a tie 14-14 the last time in Spain. So I'm sure there's a sense of unfinished business, in fairness, probably with both sides. And so from that standpoint, you could look at it and go, you know, Team Europe has figured out whatever the magic is that needs to be in order to close, in order to win. So what we did was we've put together a lot of numbers, just like I opened the show and showed you today, which was the individual performance, number of cups and individual performance for every member of both teams. And from that standpoint, I'm not sure if you've seen those stats before, 37-22 favoring Europe in terms of experience at the Ryder Cup, if you think that experience on that stage is important. Now, coming up in the program today, we're going to have a guest on that's had experience at the highest level. Jim Gallagher Jr. is going to join us, a 5-time winner on the PGA Tour, came second in the PGA Championship in 1992. He was third in the PGA Championship in 1991. He will be a part of our NBC Sports coverage of the Solheim Cup this week. But I wanted to have Jim on for a couple of reasons. One is that he's been on 2 USA teams, a Ryder Cup in 1993, they won. A President's Cup in 1994, the first ever President's Cup, and they won. And what's more, Jim went 3-1-1. And what's more to that, that President's Cup was contested on the same golf course that's going to be hosting the Solheim Cup this week, RTJ. So I want to talk to him about that, talk to him about the character of the golf course and more. But first, let's dig deep into these numbers. Once again, I'm going to bring Dom in here for a second because, Dominic, when we were talking about it this week, once you guys got into it, I didn't really know what to expect. I have to tell you, when you guys started to put these numbers together, I knew what information I was looking for. I wanted to know putting advantages. I wanted to know driving distance between the two teams, the records that we just saw, etc. Once you guys had a chance to put all this together as a body of work, which we will go through for you folks in a second here, did anything surprise you in terms of what the data showed?
Sorry, I'm eating my smoothie. Yes. Sorry. Yes. It's a healthy day today on the Fairways of Life.
Take your time.
Yeah, I would say some things surprised me. Andrew, why don't you put up the putting stats? So what you're going to look at here is the strokes gained putting numbers for every member of both teams over the course of the LPGA Tour season this year. So this is not like previous Solheim Cup experience numbers. This is from the LPGA Tour season. And there are a few things here that I would love to get your thoughts on, Matt. The first one and the most glaring one is if you look at those averages on the bottom, there's surprisingly very little difference when you combine everything together and look at it as a whole. That's interesting to me. The other side of it is the top and bottom heavy nature of it. I'm curious how the teams and the captains will work around that, because you can see on the bottom and tops of those lists the strengths and weaknesses on those teams specific to putting. How do you think you work around that as a captain, Matt?
What I think is missing in the game of golf is a stat that I would call strokes gained clutch putting. So if you look at this graphic that you guys have up there right now, look at who's the bottom of the graphic for Team USA and Megan Kang, who has a winning record. And then look on the European side, and all you have to do is look up three from the bottom with a negative strokes gained putting stat for 2024 in Carlota Saganda, and think about what she did the very last time this was played and the clutch putt that she made in Spain in order for the European team to retain the Solheim Cup. So I think stats are interesting. For example, if you look again on the U.S. side, you see Lexi Thompson at .69. Positive 0.69. Now, I'm sure there's people that are hearing that, seeing that right now, and they're surprised with Lexi Thompson because they know of what they've seen from Lexi Thompson over the years where she has struggled on the short putting. But my contention would be that's because of pressure situations that a putting performance starts to change over the course of a tournament. So what this doesn't really show us is strokes gained clutch putting, and that's the variable in an event like this, because we hear all the time the most important stat in these team competitions is putting. That's why Dom put this together. So you can see, does anybody have the advantage in putting? And the ever so slight advantage as a team average over a body of work of this entire season is slightly to the advantage of Team USA. Well, okay, if that it's been consistent, which I don't know if it has been over the last few years, but it's reasonable to assume that is close, then that would mean that the competition's going to have been close. Well, 1 out of 3 was. You could make an argument and say, a roll of a putt here, a twist of fate over here, and the fact that Team USA has gone 0-2-1 over the last 3 Solheim Cups could be flipped the other way, and that's fair. I won't argue that point either. But again, I think when you look at stats over the course of a period of time, it doesn't give you the most critical stat, which is what can you do at the moment that you have to do it when the pressure is absolutely intense. Let's take a look at the format and the schedules for the Solheim Cup, so you have an idea of what they will be doing when, Andrew, in terms of the competitive side. That involves day one, morning foursomes. That, for those of you that aren't familiar with the formal terminology, foursomes is alternate shot. In the afternoon, play 4-ball, which is best ball between the twosome. Day 2 on Saturday, same format, morning foursomes, again, alternate shot. And then in the afternoon, it will be 4-ball. There will be 4 matches in each session. And then day 3, they will be going to the singles matches. I want to go back to, if I may, the records of the two teams. I know I splashed it on the screen here when we opened up the show today, just to start to show you a comparison. But now let's dig into this just a little bit more. Solheim Cup team player records. You can see down the bottom, there are 2 rookies on the team. 22. Dom, I have to tell you, again, when you're putting these numbers together, I was surprised in the disparity between Team USA with a collective experience of 22 Solheims compared to 37 on the European side. Did you expect it to be such a large distance between them?
I did not, and that was the largest disparity that I saw when I was going through these numbers. That was the only thing that totally jumped out at me. Now you can see the way I've structured it there in the graphics. 7th cup for Lexi, 4th cup for Allie. That's including this cup. So that means Lexi's played in 6, Allie's played in 3. Andrew, just quickly put the European team up there so people can see the difference. Look how top heavy the European team is in experience. This is Anna Nordquist, 9th cup. Charlie Hull, 7th. Carlotta Saganda, 7th. Georgia Hall, 5th. It's, it's very top heavy. And when you look at cup experience at the bottom, when you add up all of the cups that have been played in total from all the members on both teams, 37 to 22 is a very noticeable, sizable gap, Matt, in experience. It just is.
Okay.
Even though both teams only have 2 rookies each, there's just a gap in experience. There just is.
It is interesting. And we've heard a lot about Robert Trent Jones and that it is a long golf course, a big canvas. Let's take a look at proficiency, driving, distance in particular, off the tee, and do a comparison here so we get a sense of, because we've heard time and again, well, the European side is longer. And at the top, you could see Sagstrom is 272.75, longest of anyone that's competing in this Solheim Cup, compared to 268.43 for Jennifer Kupcho. But what I'm getting at with all of this is when you start to go down that list, you can see Nelly Korda at 267, Lexi Thompson's 267, Allison Lee 263. When you get down to the bottom, the average driving distance for the American Solheim Cup team is 260 yards. The average driving distance for the European Solheim Cup team, 262 yards. Really interesting. What I thought was particularly interesting on the European side is look at the second to the bottom, Leona Maguire, who is an absolute just assassin when it comes to the Solheim Cup, 252.62. Dom, could you go back to European team records again? I just want to make sure I quote Leona Maguire's record correctly. 7-2-1. This is her 3rd cup. She has not lost yet in singles. That's how proficient the Irish golfer has been. So this is all the stuff that we want to run through today on the show, and that's why having Jim Gallagher. What's that, please?
I just like thinking about the strategy of it, and from a captain standpoint, because for both the Solheim Cup, President's Cup, Ryder Cup, for the last 10 years, there's been a huge focus and shift in statistics and how that impacts decision-making for the captains, for the setup of the golf course, et cetera, et cetera. And when you look at that driving distance numbers, Andrew, put those back up. The disparity is massive if you're talking about strategy for a captain. You're talking about, Andrea Lee up to Jennifer Kupcho, it's like 20-plus yard difference in driving distance. When you're trying to figure out pairings, when you're trying to figure out how you want to play a golf course with a teammate, I think there's a lot to work with there. It's really interesting because obviously the accuracy numbers don't always exactly correspond, but generally speaking, the longer you are, a little bit less accurate you are. So, and the same goes for the putting stats that we put up with the disparity there as well. So I just think the strategy is so fascinating, Matt, when you look at these lists. If you're the captain of either respective team, how these types of things are going to impact your decision-making, your pairings, the setup of the golf course, et cetera, et cetera. It's just really interesting.
Well, absolutely. It comes down to if you're the captain, do you want to put out somebody that's kind of really steady off the tee, hits a lot of fairways, and gives your longer player who, as you said, probably is more wayward at times, but probably also has the ability to make a flourish of birdies when they can just wedge it onto the green. And so do you put kind of steady with flashy in the 4-ball? With alternate shot? Do you take a look at who's probably going to be teeing off when and where? And so you have a determination of a really steady person off the tee to get it into the fairway. And then you've got in some cases, probably the longer player that will be taking it into the green. So that's another consideration that Dom is referring to there. Here's a look at the Rolex rankings between the two teams respectively. And you can see, and this is usually the stat, whether we're talking about Solheim Cup or whether we're talking about, for example, Ryder Cup or even President's Cup. This is the stat that people go to, official World Golf Rankings or Rolex Rankings in this case, and says, no, how can Team USA, who is 0 for 3 in the last 3 Solheim Cups, officially 0-2-1, but how could you say that they're not underdogs? You go, well, how can they be underdogs? Their Rolex ranking average is 26.25 compared to 41.25. And these are the type things that people look at on paper. But just like I was saying, a stat that would tell us strokes gained clutch putting in these team competitions, we have seen that performance predominantly is not in any way correlated to what they have done over the course of the season. It's based upon what they do that particular week. And that happens time and time again, or at least it has as of late.